myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thought.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Thursday, it is match day, and joined by Malcolm and Gibbo to look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United and look ahead to the match at Goodison Park tonight. Good morning, chaps.
Good morning, Steve.
And well, before we came on air, we're just sorting out the next couple of weeks' entertainment. We, as most of you will know, I do a little bit of acting from time to time, and I've got a decent part in a new film which I'll be filming in 2 weeks' time. I'm away for a week, so I'm trying to prep all the shows for that particular week. So in a couple of weeks' time, you're going to have a nice show with Malcolm and Gibbo, looking back at Malcolm's England career. So something to look forward to there. But let's start with the game just gone, Mal, and more controversy with VAR, which we've discussed on this show on many, many occasions.
Steve, I'm absolutely raging inside of me. I thought it was the most appalling piece of refereeing that I've seen this season. And then for VAR not to get involved, what the hell is it there for? I absolutely think that the authorities have got to look at themselves and say, what the hell are we doing? Don't you get that overwhelming feeling that the new owners at Newcastle are seriously being punished, and it's by refereeing decisions? And I think it's so wrong. Referee, it just seems to me that over the past few weeks, the referees have got a downer on Newcastle, and I can only think it's because of this takeover. It wasn't happening before, but it is now, and it's happening, and it's not just one or two referees, it's every single referee. Crucial decisions, not for Newcastle. No, you're not having it. And I'm so disappointed in the game that I love that this should be allowed to go on. If you look carefully, when the lad Murphy, when he got into the box, there was a hand over his shoulder, and the defender was pulling him there, and this all has happened in a matter of a couple of seconds. So there's the first penalty, and then the guy goes with his left foot and he actually clatters Murphy, and Murphy continued on his feet, having been clattered, although his balance wasn't the best. And then the fella with his next stride clatters him from the right. And then down goes Murphy. There's 3 penalties in one. And the referee has just ignored the whole thing. And then, worst of all, VAR, who must have been watching it, ignore it as well. And so not only 3 penalties, but at the same time, now, I've been trying to remember, can you remember, what was the decision of the referee? Did he give a corner or a goal kick?
It was a corner.
Did he give a corner?
It was a corner.
He gave a corner. So he's saying that the defender actually has played the ball, got nowhere near it. It was Murphy who knocked it past the defender's foot, and the defender never got a touch on it. There were 3 penalties there, and not one of them was given. And I think it absolutely stinks to high heaven. And for VAR not to get involved on something like that, I just have massive question marks from there. I really do. And it makes me feel very, very uncomfortable about the game of football itself. And I find that so depressing.
John, this was brought in to make the game easier to try and, get rid of these major issues we had. Goal line technology was brought in, and that's been a big success. The referee has a buzzer on his hand, and, we know the ball's crossed the line, because that really did make or break some teams' seasons. Teams relegated because they didn't get 3 points because they lost a particular game or whatever. And Newcastle fell victim to that on many occasions. But that really was a stride forward. But VAR, John, it's ruined the game.
Oh, I mean, there's absolutely no question of that whatsoever. But and what really sickened me, guys, on this match was that for Newcastle to lose their unbeaten run in such a way as they did, and taking that penalty situation, apart from VAR, what is the matter with the referee's eyesight? Because when you pull a guy's shirt at the back, it billows like a parachute. I mean, you could see he kept running and the shirt was a holder, and you could see it billowing in the guy's hand. Now, how on earth you don't see that, for starters? And Malcolm was right. He went on to put his leg across him, etc., after that. But for that to happen and Newcastle not to get a penalty, and for me, let us not also forget, in my opinion, Byrne was absolutely elbowed in the head and had a huge mark down his face for the rest of the game where it was beginning to swell. And he only gets a yellow card. He doesn't get a red. And you saw the reaction of Byrne when he eventually come to on the ground and got up, going over with a pointing finger to the guy that had done it. And then the guy that did that scores the winning goal in the 89th minute, when he may well not have been on the field. Now, if Newcastle had gone 1-0 up with a penalty, or if they'd gone down to 10 men at 0-0, Newcastle would not have just kept their unbeaten run, but they would have probably won the match. It was an absolute travesty of justice twice over. And Newcastle had done so brilliantly. If you remember, we're talking here Chelsea, who are the champions of Europe, who are the World Club champions, who were third top of the league. We started the match without Shelby, without Willock, without Joe Linton, without Fraser, without San Maximum. We went to a 5 at the back with Lascelles in, which is not Howe's preferred way of playing, and yet looked absolutely comfortable throughout the game. And when you look at the reaction of Tuchel on the final whistle, the Chelsea manager, he was absolutely elated. You would think they'd won the Champions League again, because he realised they'd got 3 points that they thoroughly did not deserve. It was a really left a bad taste in the mouth. And wasn't it ironic that on the winner, and yes, it was a great finish by the kid, he finished it beautifully, his first touch and in the net. But Byrne had a magnificent game, and he had been elbowed in the head by this guy, and then he switches off for a split second, and the kid gets away and scores. And you saw Byrne lying on the pitch beating the ground because he was so furious that it was that guy that he'd switched off for that split second, on another wonderful display from Byrne. And life can be very cruel in those situations. And with the team Newcastle had out, I mean, in fairness to them, they played a back 5. We had Lascelles, Longstaff, Manquillo, Almiron, Murphy all starting in that team, and it was still good enough to go toe-to-toe with the team third top of the league.
I thought the organisation was absolutely terrific, John.
It was.
And how they all linked together, but they stayed so tight at the back.
Play with a 50% of the team, different personnel, and a different system with 5 at the back, and yet they look totally comfortable to play that way.
Absolutely,
it was a great sadness, and it's one of the reasons why I'm desperate for them to bounce right back with a win tonight.
Geordie Toombalife says, careful, Steve. Coventry had a ball over the line last night with 7 minutes to go, and the ref didn't give it because his watch didn't go off. Mind, it looked like a goal all day. So there we go.
It did.
Even that, Geordie Toombalife, means that nothing is ever 99, nothing ever is ever 100% accurate. Sometimes you're going to get a problem. Sometimes you're going to get an issue. But you get me point, Jody, to my life, that is something that's benefited the game. Unfortunately for Coventry last night, it doesn't seem as if it's gone well. John, just a quick one for you from Jody Tumberlight as well. He says, good morning, lads. John, any news on the illness at the club? No mention of what it is. I'm presuming this is just another COVID outbreak. And again, medical records aren't disclosed to the general public unless John Joe or somebody comes out and says, I've got COVID.
Some clubs do it, Liverpool and various other clubs will say, oh, he's failed a COVID test. But and if you remember Manchester United with De Gea, the goalkeeper, he failed a COVID test, but he had another one coming, and that was negative, and he played in the game that particular night. And yes, you've got to think that with the Newcastle situation. Eddie Howe doesn't give a lot away prior to a game. And I can understand why, because he doesn't want the opposition to know what's happening. But quite often, we don't know the team or who's fit or who's not fit until an hour before the kickoff, and we get the team. But I mean, Willock recovered and is available for tonight. Who else is? Whether Shelby's in the same situation. Joe Linton's a test, because his was an injury, not an illness. But Willock is certainly there tonight, is a positive move.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to a little bit of politics, which, all the shows this week we've had to delve into. Geordie Tumberlife mentions, that he's watching he's been watching the Saudi Gulf, I think it is, and whether it's actually Gareth from Spider BBN. He says, watching the Saudi Gulf, I wonder whether the people out there will get asked about the ownership and stuff at the press conferences. And John says, Manchester City are owned 100% by an Arab state. We are owned 80% by an Arab investment fund. Why are we the only club picked up on by the media? Is it something that we'll have to get used to? So, Eddie Howe's had to deal with this at the press conference. I thought he spoke fantastically well again yesterday. But Malcolm, it's something. Is this something we're going to have to put up with, do you think, for the time being?
Hopefully it is only for the time being, and that it doesn't remain a constant. That people realise that there is a Saudi investment in the club, but it isn't making decisions about what's happening in Saudi Arabia, for heaven's sake. So don't drag Newcastle into it. For me, I always think politics and sport are just two subjects that should never, ever mingle in any shape nor form. So it makes me feel very uncomfortable, because Eddie Howe, he is not a politician. He's a terrific football manager, and the question should only stick to football for him. And in his place, I would be exceedingly uncomfortable, and I'd get a little bit cross, I think, if any journalist did go way off the football track.
John, we heard an interesting interview with Liam Kennedy this week, where he talked about what it's like in the press room. It's something that fans don't get an opportunity to do. And he made a point. He didn't name names, because you don't do that. Just made a point that some of the some of the national journalists, some well-respected national journalists, and one or two of the locals have a political agenda as well, which doesn't really help the cause.
There's absolutely no question about that, and you can see it, and it's quite blatant. And I get furious over that. As a Geordie who was brought up as a kid to love Newcastle United all the time, for there to be now a decision where whatever the club do, I mean, Eddie Howe, whether he likes it or not, and he's not going to like it, is going to be asked repeatedly by politically motivated journals about the Saudi situation. At any stage, it's going to come up. If we start doing well and start flying at the beginning of next season, that will be a topic. Oh, the Saudis have turned this into a political hot potato, and it ought not to be happening. It's something he is going to have to live with, and we as Geordies are going to have to live with, as irritating as it is. And there's absolutely no question, and you can read some of the Sunday nationals who quite regularly will do a story aimed at hammering Newcastle, and there was the story last weekend, wasn't it? The two most hated clubs in football are playing each other, Newcastle and Chelsea, because of Abramovich and the Saudis. And, you know, it's so over the top, and it's so as if it's the players' faults and Howe's faults and our fans' fault. Well, I'm sorry, we all had nothing to do with the takeover anyway. We cannot influence that situation. We live with the set of rules. And it seems that Chelsea are only a piranha now because of the war with Ukraine, which is horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But for the 19 years when they were winning trophies, there wasn't much being said about Abramovich during that time. There's plenty being said now. And I just feel it's something we as Geordies or people that report on or love Newcastle United are just going to have to put up with, and in the main try to ignore. It's easier for us than it is for Eddie Howe, and I really, really feel sorry for him because he's between a rock and a hard place. I mean, he can't sit there and criticize the owners of his own club, and he doesn't want to sit there and defend them when morally there's loads of people on high horses that will absolutely rip him to bits. So he's in a lose-lose situation there, even though he's in a win-win situation football-wise with Newcastle United. And it's a great sadness, but it's an inevitability. And we've got to put up with it and just think, well, we're pleased that it's not Mike Ashley that's here now, and just concentrate on that.
Yeah, it's something which we're going to have to put up with, I think. And Eddie Talbot says, Eddie Howe can't do any more than rebuff the questions being asked on geopolitics. Journalists are trying to set him up for a straw man argument, twisting the narrative. The aim is to stop our success. Getting back to the VAR, Tim says, managers should have one review, for example, the red flag, same as NFL. And if review is incorrect, then fined. What are your thoughts on that? I also had a suggestion a little bit earlier this week from somebody who said that maybe there should be a system brought in where a manager or the captain has an appeal, Malcolm, something, again, which is used in other sports where they can lodge one appeal a game against the VAR decision. Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think absolutely right, yes. And particularly in the situation that we witnessed on Sunday with Murphy. The whole thing was so blatant, and there was utter disbelief. So the manager and the manager, he knows exactly what's going on, and the player can give him a signal to say that was a foul. It should be a penalty, and yes, let him have one protest in a game on a decision, and of course, I would if I were given that opportunity as a manager, I would keep it to the point where I might not use it in most games. I keep it for something really special, and the foul or series of fouls on Murphy. That was the kind of thing that something like that, and why not get the manager? Get the referee to join the manager to have a look at the VAR screen, and could we make the game a lot better.
Could we also get Specsavers to sponsor the Referees Association? I think that might be a good idea. Because if you couldn't see that shirt billowing behind Murphy, I don't know what you could see.
Sure, but with all that's going on, and with the previous subject that was just being discussed, the politics of it all, are the referees actually making decisions or non-decisions out of the political situation? Are they actually taking it onto the pitch? Because
we're getting into the very dark realms here.
Yes, but
if anything like that's happening, good gracious me.
Well, but John, aren't we seeing it?
Well, we're seeing some very, very bad decisions, that's for certain.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
outrageously bad decisions.
And
I think
always against Newcastle.
I think that was underplayed about Burn as well, the smash in the head.
Yes,
I
it
think
was.
that was a bad foul. That I really do, and I thought at the time the way he went down, it was and it's sod's law that the guy's going to score the winner. And albeit he struck the winner sweetly and beautifully, but that's got nothing to do with it. He wouldn't have been on the field
Yes.
if the Burn elbow had been picked up. And I tell you what, if a 6'7" centre half, Malcolm, give an elbow to a little centre forward, if it had been the other way on, Burn would have been off.
Yes.
Burn
Yeah,
would have
absolutely.
been off.
Yeah. And
I agree 100%, and that is the way it is at the moment. We've just got to put up with it. There is a vendetta, it would seem, against Newcastle United, but we've given ourselves a great chance of staying up, and I think a win tonight will probably secure our Premier League survival. Let's move on to this question. As a striker target, what do you guys think of Raul Jimenez from Wolves? Probably able to get, and I think a top draw player. He's a proven Premier League striker, says Maidstone Junction Outstable. So, Malcolm, things are going to start turning towards the transfer window over the next few weeks when Newcastle can safely say that they will be in the Premier League. And, a goal scorer is something we need.
Without a shadow of a doubt, that we've got a forward who struggles to prove himself as a goal scorer currently in the side. We've got one out injured who is he's constantly injured. So we are going to next season want a forward who can guarantee somewhere in the region of 20 to 25 goals every season. And could Jimenez do that? Possibly. Yeah, possibly. But I think that Eddie Howe and the hierarchy, they will go for the very best. And I think that the fact that Bruno has signed and all the others that have followed, that will be telling the world of footballers that there is something big going on at Newcastle. That the money is there, and that's the kind of proposition that an awful lot of very good footballers would want to be a part of.
Agree with you, Malcolm, and I think as well what you have highlighted is absolutely right. That for me, in the January window, one of the first things we had to do was lock that back door, because the defence were letting in 4 and 5 goals at times in games, and were looking horrendous. They were looking like a colander. And what did we do? We signed 3 new defenders. Now, they haven't all played together, ironically, because Trippier's got injured and Burn didn't start, and Target couldn't play against Villa. But we signed 3 defenders. We locked that back door, and we have never let in more than 1 goal in a match since Christmas. We've never let in more than 1 since it sorted the defence. For me, the priority now, when we go into the summer, has got to be the attack. Because as you highlighted, Malcolm, we've got 2 centre forwards who have both got a big minus tick against them. They've got a lot of pluses for them, but they've got 2 minus. In Wood's case, he doesn't score anything like enough goals. And in Wilson's case, that he does score goals, but he will be injured and he'll miss half of any given season because he's injury prone. Nothing he can do about that at this stage of his life. But we do need a centre forward that'll go and get goals. Because we've got to rely on Fraser and San Maximum and Willock from midfield, etc., etc. We're not going to get anywhere above halfway in the table. And I do think, without a shadow of doubt, that will be addressed in the summer, without a shadow of doubt. But my number one priority in the summer is to get goal scorers in. That's the most difficult thing. No question about that. That's the most difficult thing in the transfer market, is buying goal scorers. Everybody wants them. Everybody could do with them. Manchester City could do with a centre forward, and they're top of the league. So it is difficult. But that's our priority this summer, is to get quality in and not be flying. You see, for me, you look at tonight's game or the next game against Spurs and you think, well, the defence is okay. We can do okay. But will we score 2 goals to win the match? Maybe we will, but maybe we won't. And there's always a maybe. Whereas if you've got a quality centre forward, you think, you bet your life we will. You know, and I think that's what we must look at, guys.
Yeah, Nick says in international hockey, you get a couple of chances to appeal decisions. You win the appeal, you keep your chance. You lose the appeal, you lose an appeal. It works really well. And Davy Craig says Keith Hackett spoke about trying to set up an academy for young players who don't get contracts when they turn 18 or are released early in the reserves to learn to be referees. What do you think? Good idea, Mark?
Yes, it could be. I think that there are too many referees going through who haven't actually got experience of playing the game, and one of those reasons is that to go through the full refereeing system, you have to start early in your 20s, so that doesn't allow you to actually create a playing career first. And so the idea is very good because those kids would have the idea of how the game is played and how footballers work within themselves.
The ironic situation, guys, as well, when we talk about referees in general at the moment, and, you know, should they be sponsored by Specsavers, is 2 of the best referees of recent years in the Premier League we have not been able to have doing our games because they're Geordies. Clattenburg, the first guy that had the World Cup final, and Michael Oliver now.
Yes.
You know, so the very best referees, or as it happens, because they're Geordies, and we thoroughly understand that, because both were Newcastle United fans, but haven't been able to ref our games.
Right, but when the referee system was different in the way that a referee went up the refereeing ladder, it was much shorter. And I remember that when I was playing, and I'm sure you'll remember this, John, that there were ex-pros who were refereeing at the top level. Matthewson was one, wasn't it? Bob Matthewson.
Yes, there was, yes.
Yeah, and there were a number of others. And what I think happened was that they were able to teach other referees when they were all getting together through the summer and doing sort of referee coaching and what have you. And for me, the standard of refereeing was better back then than it is now, and I think it's because there isn't that the player mindedness in refereeing anymore.
Interesting stuff. Some great topics this morning. Keep your questions coming in the chat. Just want to say a big thank you, as always, to our sponsors. Spider VPN for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the search list. And Gareth, good morning. He's in the chat contributing this morning. Thanks for your sponsorship, mate. It means a lot. Thank you also to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245. And to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks to Arcot Interiors, who you can find on Heaton Road for all your kitchen necessities. They are the boys to trust. Google Arcot Interiors. They come up at the top of the Google search list as well. Thanks to John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. And thanks to Cleekai, meet the new game over screen, drop into a Clee Run device near you. Also available on Apple Store, Google Play, and at clearun.game. Thanks to Jab Signature, jabsignature.co.uk, and thanks to Media Art for all the video work. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. You hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. Still 7 shows a week. Click the thumb up to like the video. It does do us a big favour. Click share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans and to make a comment. We're available as a podcast as well on iTunes, Spotify, and the rest. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show. We're also supporters of the food bank on here, and with no home games at the moment, it's vitally important that the money keeps rolling in. So please go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a virtual donation to the match day bucket. We've also got a big event coming up in April. Myself, Supermac, and Gibbo will be live with Holly Blades at the Marlborough Social Club on Saturday, the 9th of April at 12 o'clock. Tickets for that event are £10, and they are from NewcastleLegends.com. Well worth coming along to that. And if you want to come along to the Shearer dinner, the 260 dinner, enter the raffle now. Tickets are £5. There's not many left. NUFCmatters.com. Got a 1 in 99 chance of winning. NUFCmatters.com is where you go to enter that raffle. And just want to talk a little bit about the renaming of the bar, lads. Shearers is back, Malcolm. And it's sometimes just the little things. The movement of Shearer's statue, the renaming of the bar, little things matter to Newcastle fans, Malcolm, as well as the big things.
Yes, they do. And I think that fans over the years have they always sort of get a punch on the nose from Newcastle United, and it leaves them quite disappointed. You know, the Jackie Milburn statue, that got removed and sort of whizzed down the road. And then a falling out with Alan Shearer, and I really felt for Alan that the way that he's been treated by the club has not been very good. But I think that the new people are looking to make all the wrongs of the past right, and this is a great first step by renaming the bar back to Shearer's, and I'm sure that we can expect an awful lot more, because I think the people owning the club, they want to see success on the field, but they also want everybody involved. They want to be the very centre of the city of Newcastle and all of its population, and so they reach out, whereas the previous owner never did, and didn't. It was almost like he put barricades up all of the while, and
it was so petty, Malcolm, wasn't it? It was so petty to take the name Shearer off the bar. He is Newcastle's top goal scorer throughout the 130 years the club has existed. He's got the most goals ever for the club, etc., etc. An absolute legend.
And also, John, the only Newcastle player, I believe, who's captained England.
Probably, that's a good question. Certainly, of recent times, I'm going back to the Edwardian team and thinking, did anybody out of the Colin Veitch, etc., etc. But yes, I would think that you're probably right. I mean, it was an absolute nonsense, and it did Ashley no favors because it was so petty as to be untrue. Not just stripping the bar of its name, but making the statue have to be outside the ground by about 2 foot, on a site that used to be a public toilet site. I mean, it was an absolute nonsense. And I think that the new owners have been very, very clever and very, very astute. They're taking down at the earliest opportunity of the Sports Direct signs, etc., etc.
Mhm.
Their long wait that they had, thanks to the Premier League dithering and trying.
Oh, we've lost John now. He's back.
As Steve knows, by getting themselves around, looking at the Newcastle situation, talking to people that knew the Newcastle situation about the small things that irritated fans, the changing of the name of St James's Park, the Shearer bar, the Shearer statue, everything that was possible, the signs, Sports Direct, and they've changed all that. And these are all small things that are important in the bigger picture. Of course, you've got to get the appointment of the manager right, of the director of football, of your signings. And by the way, it looks as if they've done that as well. Of course, they're the important decisions, but these smaller things that have been irritants, very, very clever to get them put right and win a lot of support around the city as a consequence.
Yes, and don't you feel that for all these little things that are being done, the atmosphere in St James Park is far, far better than it's been for a very long time?
Oh, the atmosphere is absolutely wonderful. It's a pleasure to go now, not only because there isn't a toxic atmosphere, which was totally justified on the terraces. There's a wonderful attitude on the terraces. There's the wonderful war flags situation that makes the ground look terrific.
Yes.
Your team is playing on the front foot instead of the back foot, which is terrific for an hour and a half. And you go into the match actually looking forward to the game. Whereas before, you used to be terrified when kickoff time come, because you knew you were all going to stand in two lines along the edge of our own penalty area and try to kick the ball over the stand and hope we can get a 0-0, which we never did get because we couldn't defend. But the whole atmosphere to the whole thing has become a joy again. I mean, I'm getting quite heady, which is why I've got my cap on, just to keep us down a little bit. I mean, it's so nice to get a warm feeling about match days that we didn't have for an awful long time. And it's nice to enter that, that world again that used to be the world of Newcastle United. I would probably have to go back to the entertainers to remember the last time there was such a feel-good factor, the birth of the entertainers, when Keegan put together the great side that ended up with Shearer, the final piece of the jigsaw. I mean, they were wonderful years when you really look forward to the match and everything else. And this is the start of the same thing again. And long may it continue. We do know there's an awful lot more work still to be done. There's absolutely no question about that. But you know what we've got back? That small four-letter word, hope. And that should never be taken away from football fans. Football fans at every club have got a right to hope. They haven't got a right to demand success, because everybody can't win the division they're in. Only one team can do that. But you ought to be left with the hope that one team will be your team. We didn't have that hope for 14 years. We've got that hope now. So that's why it feels so good to be alive again.
Yes, and in that hope, John, that football fans, they want to be represented by people who are really having a go at it, and that, I think, is very satisfying when people can see that serious effort that people are putting in on their behalf.
And it's just called caring, Fans will forgive an awful lot if people care. And that's why Spurs, who are an absolute shambles behind the scenes, etc., the fans love Conte, because they can see him loving their club and their team. And that's infectious. And
I think he surprised them somewhat, that he is that caring.
Yes, absolutely.
They love him for it.
That is a good scene and warms people. And there's not that warmth about Manchester United. If you look at it, everything about Manchester United is decay and coldness. But as we say, that's their problem. We've had our problems, but ours are in the past. Hardlines, Manchester United, get on with it. The real United, will get on with it up here.
I love it. There is only one United, John. We know that.
Absolutely, mate.
We were discussing glasses before we came on air, weren't we, in the green room? And Billy Trace says, I've got the look of Ben Kingsley and Gandhi.
Well, I didn't like to say too much, but that thought did flash through my mind that the Ben Kingsley situation when he played Gandhi with the old bonnet and the same sort of glasses. Yeah, I thought that perhaps when you're going to do that film, it is a remake of Gandhi and you're just getting in the part.
You got the lead.
Geordie Toonvalley says he thought more about Garnett. Dear me.
Oh dear me. Well, I'll leave
see
that
a few lookalikes coming in for Friday's show. AJ says, would you mind, guys, answering this? Would you play St. Maximum tonight? He says, honestly, I wouldn't. He's not prepared to track back or press. He can't do that. I'm sorry, it's the bare minimum. I don't care how good you are at dribbling. Now, I've got to be honest, lads, at the match on Saturday, down at Chelsea, I said, when Fraser didn't come on and ASM did, I said, this is either going to win us or lose us the game. ASM's either going to go on a wonderful, mazy run and tuck the ball into the top corner, and we're going to be talking about it for years, or he's going to do very little tracking back, and it's going to end up costing us. And I'm sad to say it was more the latter. I'm not directly blaming Maximin for the goal. I just felt it wasn't the right game. And Eddie Howe lives and dies by those decisions. I think if he brought Fraser on for Almiron, it was like for like. It would have kept them on the back foot. And he's defensive as well. I think it would have worked better. ASM just at times is a luxury player. And my answer to this question is simple, AJ. I don't think I would play ASM in this team at the moment as a starting player. I would bring him on in the right time, in the right games. But I just don't think I don't think I would play him. I think he's become the past. I don't think he's the future. Malcolm?
Yeah. Well, I've been warning about him, haven't I, for ages, that he's not a team player. He's very much an individual, and he'll only give you what he's got going in one direction. And then it's all got to be about him. And that can't work in a team game. That there are times when he's surrounded by people, there's a simple pass on, he ignores that and wants to beat three players, and he loses the ball, and the rest of the team won't be happy every time that happens, because then all of a sudden they're back under pressure. And Sir Maximin, he's got to learn how to mix his game up. Go on a run when it's on, but at the same time, as you're on that run, you can't just have one thing in mind, and that's I've got to get through to the penalty area and have a shot at goal, because defenders, when it's like that, defenders at the top level, that they'll just edge him away and away and away from the goal. And you can do that as the player is running with a ball. You can literally run side by side with him and just cut the angle that he wants to go, cut that off. And in the end, and that's when he needs to pass it, come back and make another run elsewhere. But he doesn't do it. I've never seen him do it. I've never seen him when he's on one of those runs, just when somebody else has made a run alongside, just knocking somebody in. And he could do it as a part of his game. And then that's when defenders aren't sure what the hell is going to happen with the fella. But at the moment, he's just so easy to defend against because he's a one-trick pony. He's got to learn a lot more tricks.
John?
Yeah, he's a very, very controversial figure, isn't he? He will always split opinion right down the middle between being the most exciting horse in the stable, if you like, and being somebody that doesn't work and do any work whatsoever. The interesting thing for me, if I may, guys, is that I look if we field 3 forwards, you know, a centre forward and 2 outliners, 3 front men, the guys that are the polar opposite are Wood and San Maximin. Wood will work his socks off, doing things. You saw him against Chelsea, pop up in a defensive situation, try to get his body between man and ball, win the ball back, etc., etc., etc. He does a lot of work, which was highlighted by Eddie Howe when he did the quotes piece on Wood. He does a terrific amount of work for the team. What he doesn't do is score a lot of goals or have blistering pace to get in the box and finish. So he will graft his socks off, he will drop back, he will do all that, but he won't finish. San Maximin is the exact opposite of that. He'll never come back and work his socks off and track people back and look for the ball and put his body in the way of attackers, etc., etc., etc. But he might just show the pace to get in the area and finish. That Wood cannot do that part of the game. They're very, very different players, and it becomes very emotive as to what you want. I mean, at the moment, the way Newcastle play, I've got a feeling that the guy that's most important of that threesome up top is Fraser, who does work and can cross a ball and can score the odd goal. Fraser has become a very, in the way Joe Linton's become very important in midfield. And by the way, although he's been out the team, we need Joe Linton back. I think Joe Linton in there is a massive plus physically, etc., etc. But the guy, if your front three happen to be Woods and Maximum and Fraser, for example, probably Fraser's the one that's the most important because he does a little bit of everything. He works. Yeah. I mean, I tell you, when he signed, when this season started, he was 6'3" and he's now 5'3" because of all the work he's done. So I've got a feeling that he is much more important. San Maximum, you can justify how picking him, and you can justify him being picked for the bench very, very easily. But next season, if Newcastle get a goal scorer signed, then San Maximum could well end up a permanent bench player.
Okay, John, how many goals has St. Maximin scored this season?
More than Wood.
Only just. Only just. And he's had the whole season thus far. Wood only came in after Christmas.
In fairness, he scored 5 in the league. He's second to Wilson, who's got 6. He scored 5 in the league.
Yes.
And nobody has scored more than 2. I'm not defending him there. That's just the facts.
Sure.
He's got 5 and nobody else has scored more than 2.
But that's not enough.
It's available now because Wilson isn't available.
Yeah, but the kind of player St. Maximin is, 5 isn't enough. You know, he should be finishing the season with at least 20 because of the amount of ball that he gets and keeps, the runs that he goes on. All he does is go in one direction. And he should be returning per season somewhere in the region of about 20 goals. And I think that at the moment he's on a quarter of that. And I doubt that come the end of the season, he'll have half the 20 that he should be getting.
Okay, we'll come to the game in a moment. I just want to ask Malcolm this one. Daryl Taylor says, Mr. MacDonald, absolute pleasure to meet you. Hope you don't mind me gay crashing, but I saw you many times at Loftus Road as an opposing striker. Why did you and our Stan Bowles seem to have such a feud?
There was never really a feud. It was sort of stirred up by newspapers and Stan Bowles, he came out in the Sun newspaper, and I was writing a column in the Sun every week, and in this interview in a Sun column, he proclaimed that he was going to score more goals than me. He didn't mention anybody else playing in the league, and so in my column in the Sun, I just said, well, Stan, you're a betting man. How much do you want to put on it? and he never did. And because I love challenges like that, the way that Gordon Lee carried on with about Alan Gowling. For me, that was just a challenge. And so even though Gordon Lee was playing me in a much deeper position, nevertheless, I was getting forward, and I finished up getting one more goal, although he scored more league goals in the season. But overall, in all the competitions, I pipped him by one, I think. But Gordon Lee had me playing from midfield pretty much, and
you were the Joe Linton of your day, Malcolm.
Wow! How dare you say that, John?
I honestly don't know whether to hear that as praise or as.
Well, it's praise now. He's doubling his fee.
He is doing well.
Get well soon, Big Joe. Get well soon. Terra C says, please stop giving oxygen to those bashing ASM. The lad has never been properly coached before. This is the first time he's getting a decent opportunity to be coached. Give him time. Terra C, I'm not going to disagree with you, because ultimately, Joe Linton was written off by everybody, including us, and look at what's happened now. So look,
and actually worse than that, Steve.
Yeah,
you know, and for me, dear me, I didn't think he was ever going to make a player as long as he.
Yes. Yes, no.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I just caught myself there.
Billy Trey says, when Stan and Supermac both fell out of their boats in Superstars, Bulls was the worst ever on Superstars, especially with the gun, he says.
That was the canoes. With Stan, honestly, that he was so nervous of water, and the way he behaved in the canoe, and I was canoeing, watching him, and I was laughing so much. And there is one thing I can tell you, that when you're in a canoe, do not howl with laughter, because you'll go over. For sure,
simple as that.
And that's what happened to me. But let me tell you about Stan Bowles. He was very nervous of water, and he was very nervous of the shooting, and it was pistol shooting that we had to do. And what we had to do was we had to put the point of the barrel on the table. Then the target would appear, raise, aim, fire, and put the pistol back down on the table, point of it. And you had to fire 10 shots. And so Stan, the first time that the target appeared, he came up and he pulled the trigger, and then he put the pistol back down on the table and pulled the trigger again and blasted a great hole in the table. He was absolutely petrified. Water, guns, you name it. But he only felt comfortable, I think, going into a betting shop.
Brilliant. Okay, Newcastle United play Everton tonight at Goodison Park, 7:45 kickoff. I'm setting off at 1 o'clock with Holly and Dave. Looking forward to getting down there. The game is available on Amazon Prime. If you don't have it, get yourself on NUFC.com. You can get a free 1-week trial, and they've put the link up there for you to get that. 3,000 away tickets have been sold for the original game. Obviously, this has now been rescheduled, and we will be in the Bullens Road upper and lower tiers. We beat Everton, of course, 3-1 in February, so the teams will know each other quite well. And Newcastle kick off in 14th position, 9 points ahead of Everton in 17th. Everton, of course, do have 2 games in hand. Victory tonight would lift us up 2 places into 12th, which would be our highest position since May. They are unbeaten in their last 3 visits, producing 2 draws and a win. Callum Wilson and Kieran Trippier remain out due to injury. Joe Willock is in line to return to the side. Joe Linton and John Joe Shelby still doubtful due to illness, but you never know, they may feature. Yerry Mina, Tom Davies, Fabian Delph are all out for Everton. John Joe Kenny suspended, and there's going to be a late decision made on striker Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Of course, ex-player lies in wait. Salomon Rondon hasn't had the greatest of seasons, it has to be said, at Everton. And Craig Pawson is refereeing, and VAR, which is always switched off, is Stuart Atwell. Okay, lads, a couple of pointers in the chat before we get your opinions. Blue Moon Boy says, would you start ASM? Well, we've already talked about that. He says he was immense in the last game versus Everton, and he could really get into Coleman, in his opinion. Do you expect Longstaff to start tonight, or would you drop him and play Ryan Fraser, says Tom. And Andrew says, I agree about ASM, Steve, but he frightened the life out of those Everton players at St James's Park. His best performance of the week. They will be over the moon if he isn't starting. So, yeah, lots of opinions about this, guys. Your opinion on the starting lineup from those points, Mal, and your prediction.
Tonight, I think that what Eddie Howe how he's been putting a side together, despite the injuries and what have you, he will have his side absolutely set up for tonight. And I'm not so sure about St Maximin. I know he did well at St James Park. But Eddie Howe will be thinking, well, can we allow that sort of free spirit who doesn't abide by any rules that Eddie Howe sets? And you have to have rules and discipline to play, particularly away from home, to play a 90-minute match. I personally will put Fraser in. And he has really surprised me since Eddie Howe has arrived, along with Joe Linton, and so bring St Maximin on. I think maybe with half an hour to go if you really need him, and you need somebody to go and sort of terrorize a defense and what have you. He would do that, but will he score goals? Will he get into that position where he can just knock one square across the 6-yard box? I've never seen him do that. And time and again, he gets into those positions and he could just knock something along the 6-yard line for somebody to tap in, and he never does. It's got to be him, all about him. I think that Newcastle, they would have been cheered by the performance against Chelsea. I think I think it was absolutely terrific, and so I'm going to take Newcastle to win the game 2-0 tonight.
Okay, John.
Yeah, good point. Team-wise, I would like to see us go back to flat back 4. If most people are available, let's go back to flat back 4. I would play Fraser instead of Almiron out wide. I think Willock could well come in for Sean Longstaff to provide a goal threat there. You look at Everton, that they're joined third bottom. They've taken 22 points from 26 games. That's their worst return at this stage ever in the top flight. That is how bad they are. For Lampard, who hasn't known what he was taking on, Lampard, he's had 5 defeats in 6 Premier League games, all over a 42-day period. There's only Watford and Norwich who have lost more games than Everton's 16. There's only 4 clubs that have let in more goals than they've let in. And this is do or die for them. This game tonight is do or die, because after it is over, they've still got 5 of the top 6 clubs to play. They've still got to play Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United and West Ham. So if they don't beat Newcastle tonight, they are virtually down. And I think they had a bad January window. They made 2 alleged superstar signings in Donny van de Beek and Dele Alli. Neither have produced the goods. For me, Van de Beek has just proved why he hasn't got games at Manchester United, because he's done absolutely nothing. And Dele Alli can't even start. So, and we had a very good January, Dan Burn et al. So that has been a huge difference. The only chance Everton have got tonight is that if Lampard has tried to build up in them the siege mentality, it's us against the world, we're a wounded animal, let's go out and attack the prey. That's the only, and if Newcastle go out with the right attitude and douse any small fire in the first quarter of an hour, I think Newcastle will go on and win. And I'm taking Newcastle to win, and maybe 2-1 instead of the 2-0 that Malcolm said. But quite frankly, I don't care what the score is as long as Newcastle wins. If Newcastle win, you can have any score you like. I'll take it. That would be enough for me. And I honestly believe that Newcastle will get the result they want tonight. And isn't it wonderful? This is what I was talking about early on, guys. Isn't it wonderful that you can look forward to matches now and be quite confident? Where did that come from in the last 14 years? Newcastle to win.
Great stuff. Yeah, I'm going for a win as well tonight. I'm going for a 2-0 win. So it's a clean sweep. Daryl Taylor says, God bless Malcolm. Thank you for that. Brought back many happy memories. Stan isn't doing so well health-wise, so would love to send my love through this medium. Thank you, Steve. No problem, Daryl.
Yeah, indeed. Actually,
absolutely.
He's quite a lovely lad, Stan.
And I tell you what, he was a terrific entertainer. I enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah.
Yes. What a talented boy. What a talented boy.
Yes.
Okay, our thoughts are Stan Bulls. As always, a fantastic show. Great to have John and Malcolm on, and we look forward to getting together again next week. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody in the admin, and we will see you next week.
Take care, guys. Keep the faith.